Hey everyone, Teo here. Today I'm reviewing the Parblo Coast 16 Pro pen display. Yes, another pen display review because this YouTube channel features a lot of products for digital artists, graphic designers, and visual content creators. By the way, a pen display is a monitor that you can draw on, so you do need to connect this to a computer in order to use it. This video is going to be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written on my blog. The link is in the video description below. Alright, let me start with the disclaimer first. This is a review unit provided by Parblo. However, all the opinions in this video are mine. I'm just going to present to you my findings and you can decide whether or not this is worth the money, and this is US $399. On Amazon there is the occasional discount coupon, and right now they have $40 off the official retail price. Let me zoom in. Oops, I cannot zoom in because this is not a touch screen. Let me give you the bottom line up front. This is a beautiful pen display. The image quality is good. I measured color support for 100% sRGB and slightly over 200 nits of brightness. The drawing performance is good. There is USB-C to C connection. The downsides, there are some driver issues for dual display setups. The dual display issues affect macOS and Windows, at least at the time of making this review. So if you want to use a dual display setup, this is not the pen display I would recommend. If you want to use this pen display as your main and only display, it works fine. Let's take a look at the items included in the box. We have the USB-C to C cable, the 3-in-1 cable which features full-size HDMI and USB Type-A, the nib remover, a pen stand with 8 replacement nibs inside, the pen pouch, USB Type-A extension cable, one artist glove, microfiber cleaning cloth, quick start guide and warranty info. Build quality for the pen is good. It's not powered by battery, so no charging is required. The two side buttons are customizable and the pen tip has slight movement. The pen supports slightly over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, and it also has tilt sensitivity. However, I wasn't able to get tilt to work with macOS. Here's a closer look at the pen stand, which has some weight to it. So there are 8 replacement nibs inside and the nib remover. When you first take out the pen display, you're going to see a protective film on the pen display. And there are some instructions on how you can connect your pen display to your computer. You can either use the 3-to-1 cable or the USB-C cable. Alright, let's remove the protective film on top of the pen display. The pen display has a matte textured screen protector on it. I like the rounded corners. It's quite thin, thinner than a typical laptop. On the back we have matte textured surface as well. I'm not sure what this is, metal or plastic. It feels like metal. There are 4 rubber feet. On the right side of the pen display are 2 USB-C ports which are not interchangeable, which is why they are labeled. This one here is for the 3-to-1 cable. The included USB-C cable is designed in such a way to go inside this hole. There is the thicker part, the smaller part which will go in, and there is a little groove here. There is an extrusion inside that matches that groove. This means you cannot use your own USB-C video cable. So if you find this USB-C cable too short, you will have to use this cable with another extension cable. So let's connect the two together. You may notice this display is quite dim. So this is the first issue I encountered. I can go into the OSD to increase the brightness. There are actually 2 settings here. You have to increase the backlight to increase the brightness. If you increase the brightness to increase the brightness, the colors will be washed out, so I have to use the backlight. Unfortunately, the USB-C connection with macOS does not remember the backlight settings when the Mac restarts. So when this restarts, I have to adjust the backlight again to increase the brightness from low to medium or high. And this, as you can tell, is a huge potential deal breaker. The backlight settings can be remembered if you use the 3-to-1 cable, and there are no issues with the backlight settings with Windows. So when I connected this Windows laptop to the pen display using the USB-C cable, the USB-C port wasn't able to provide enough power to power the pen display. So currently I'm actually using the 3-to-1 cable. When I connected the Surface Pro 8 with the USB-C cable to the pen display, it actually works. So depending on the computer you're using, your USB-C port may or may not be able to provide enough power. And if you cannot get enough power from the USB-C port, you may have to go use the 3-to-1 cable. This is a 16-inch laptop and the HDMI port is here. The USB Type A port is here, so I have to split the cables this way. You can see the cables are bent quite a bit. It's still long enough, but if you don't want this to happen, you may have to use an extension cable for this or maybe that. There are 6 shortcut touch buttons here, which are customizable. However, the icons are fixed, and when you press the buttons, there is this buzzing sound which cannot be turned off. That's the power button, and that's the OSD toggle. You can press it and push up and down to navigate through the OSD menu. Let's see what you can do with the OSD. So now it's using Type-C connection. The resolution is 1080p at 60 Hz. The backlight will adjust the actual brightness, and the brightness will give you more brightness but wash out the colors. I always find it very confusing when companies have backlight and brightness. And you can adjust the contrast and sharpness. It's very easy to use the toggle to move around the OSD, which is great. Here you can adjust the color temperature, the gamma, and the hue. It says that you can adjust the speaker volume, but there is no speaker on this pen display, and all these are not that important. The video source will be automatically selected depending on which cable you connect. By the way, there is no stand included, so I'm actually using my own stand. This is the Parblo PR100 stand made by the same company. And with this stand, you can adjust the angle of the pen display to whatever angle you want. This is an excellent stand that you can use with any tablet. So let's take a look at the colors. The colors on this pen display look good out of the box. I've already color calibrated the pen display with my Spider 5 Pro color calibrator, and I measured color support for 100% sRGB, 92% P3, 84% Adobe RGB, and 82% NTSC, and a maximum brightness of 207 nits. So right now I'm using the pen display in a bright room environment, and 200 nits at maximum brightness is sufficient for this bright environment. And this pen display has pretty good viewing angles with minimal color shift. This is the anti-glare on the matte screen protector. This is not very aggressive, which is good because you can see the reflections diffuse, but you can still see the colors and the content on the screen. The image quality is good for editing photos, digital art, graphic design, visual content creation. The limitation of this display is the resolution is just 1080p, so there is noticeable pixelation. 1080p resolution still works fine on a 16-inch display. I can still have palettes on the left and right side and still get a good amount of canvas space to work with. When you compare the display size to A4 size paper, this is how big the display is. It's much wider and slightly shorter compared to this A4 paper pad. One downside to this display is the matte screen protector does introduce some film grain or color noise. It's not a big deal to me, but it's there. This pen display has reasonably good color accuracy, and it's very satisfying to be able to draw or work on visual content on this display. Let's see what the driver can do. This is the macOS driver, which is going to look slightly different compared to the Windows driver, but the functionality should be quite similar to the Windows driver. So this is where we can adjust the pen settings, and usually I have one of the side buttons here set to switch display because I use a dual display setup. Unfortunately for the macOS driver, there is no switch display functionality, which to me is a deal breaker since I use two displays. I use a dual display setup. This is where you can adjust the pen pressure. This is the mapping, which you can leave as default. For the macOS driver, the radio buttons here to change the orientation are actually grayed out, so you cannot select them. But you can still change the orientation, just do it through the macOS system preferences. And this is where you can customize the 6 shortcut buttons. You can also input your own keyboard shortcuts if you want to here. Let's take a look at the Windows driver now. So that's Windows Ink, which you may have to toggle on or off to troubleshoot pressure sensitivity if that's not working as expected. For some reason, they have this switch display shortcut set to Windows P. So when I use this button to switch display, it actually calls up the keyboard shortcut Windows P for projection. So it doesn't actually move the cursor from this display to the other display, and this of course is a deal breaker if you need to use a dual display setup. For the drawing test, I'll be using Windows. For Mac OS, the only issues I encountered are I could not get tilt sensitivity to work, and I could not get pressure sensitivity to work with Adobe Illustrator on Mac OS. But other than that, the drawing performance on Mac OS with the various drawing apps that I've tested is pretty good. This is Photoshop on Windows, and if you cannot get pressure to work by default, try toggling Windows Ink on or off. If it still doesn't work, maybe you have to create this PS user config text file with this text and paste this file into this location and test again. Let's test the initial activation force. So this is how thick the pen really is. And let me draw a very thin line. Initial activation force is good. Why I say that is because when I draw thick lines like this, I can go back to drawing very thin lines easily. And the pen is able to detect minor changes when you're using minimal pressure. So initial activation force of this pen is quite good. The lines don't taper quite as sharply with Photoshop. So you can see the end of the line, it's quite abrupt. This app is Medibank Paint Pro, and it tapers slightly better. Let's zoom in and have a look. So you can see it tapers sharper, but for some of the lines you can see it's not that sharp. Back to Photoshop. Now I'm drawing lines with consistent width by applying consistent pressure, and I can do so very easily. Let's test tilt sensitivity. So here you can see the shape of the cursor is following the direction of the pen. This is a raking brush. Let's test tilt sensitivity. This is a raking brush. The cursor can follow the direction of the pen. So if I tilt it like this, I can combine all the lines together, and I can spread out the lines, or I can combine the lines. The lines not being able to taper sharply can present some issues when drawing. For example, when drawing hair, I want the lines to taper sharply so that the strands of hair can look nice, but here the ends of the line, they are quite abrupt, which doesn't look that nice. You can see that here and here as well. So to taper the lines, I will have to rely on pressure sensitivity instead. Press down harder here and release lighter. Yep, so it takes some time to get used to. Let's try it here. Thicker and lighter, thicker and lighter. Let's color the hair. So same thing, if I just draw like this, you can see the strokes, the hair strands, they don't look that nice. So I actually have to rely a lot more on pressure sensitivity and be more conscious when I'm drawing. So that's the main, I think one of the main difference between this pen display and other pen displays that I've tested. The lines, they don't taper that well as well here. Okay, let's add some darker strands of hair. Let's try again. Thicker, lighter, thicker, lighter. So you just need to spend some time to get used to how the pen reacts to pressure. Looks good, the lines look good. So this is just a very quick rough sketch. Let's zoom into certain areas and have a closer look. So I can get thin and thick lines very easily. This is Clip Studio Paint. No issues with pressure sensitivity. The lines can taper quite nicely. 15.6 inch is a very nice size to work with. The smallest pen display I would recommend would be at least 13 inches. Don't go with 12 inches. 15 inches is good. If you're looking for a pen display that you can use as your main display, get at least 15 or something larger. So I don't really have any issues with cursor misalignment when drawing within this area. And this is a nice size to work with for drawing. This is a very typical Singapore shop front. The texture is nice. The texture of the matte screen protector is nice. The software you use, of course, will matter because with certain software, the lines, they taper much nicer. But generally speaking, pressure sensitivity works great with most of the software I've tested. The main issue I have with this pen display is, as mentioned several times, I use dual display setup, so there are issues with the switch display feature. So that is a deal breaker for me. Let's add some shadows here. Okay, so this is the sketch. Just a very quick sketch. I didn't really experience any issues while drawing this. Here's a close-up on the sketch. Let's add some texture. Maybe some shadows on the pipe here. Maybe a few more lines here. Maybe some curtains, curtains behind. More textures here. The reference photo I was using was provided by my friend who started the SG Shop Front Challenge. page. Another issue I discovered with the pen is with cursor tracking. So I'm right-handed. If I move the pen to the left side and the cursor on the left side, cursor tracking on the left side of the display is quite good up to the extreme edge. In this video, you can see a gap between the cursor and the pen tip, but that's due to my camera angle. From where I'm looking at, there is no gap between the cursor and the pen tip. On the right side, there is noticeable cursor offset. So the pen tip is actually now in contact with the drawing surface, and you can see that very big noticeable gap. So when I have to use the cursor on this side, I have to make sure to hold the pen almost vertically so as to minimize the cursor offset. So if I move the pen and cursor to the left side, there is no cursor offset. Without changing how I hold the pen and the angle, and I move the pen to the right side, there is cursor offset, so I have to hold the pen more vertically to prevent the cursor offset. If I switch to my left hand and I move the pen here, there is no cursor offset. But if I move to the left side, there is cursor offset, and I have to hold the pen more vertically to minimize the cursor offset. So the way you hold the pen at the extreme edges matters. Right, to conclude, let me run through what I like and dislike about this pen display very quickly. I like the design. This looks nice. It's a beautiful pen display. The color support is good. I really enjoy working on this pen display, mostly because the colors, they look really good and it has good brightness, and of course the drawing performance is pretty good, except with macOS where I wasn't able to get tilt to work. Anyway, I don't really use tilt brushes for drawing. And also with macOS, Adobe Illustrator doesn't have pressure sensitivity. But other than that, I was able to get pressure to work, and I was able to draw whatever I want to draw with all the various software that I have tested. 15.6 inch is a good size to work with, and I like the matte textured drawing surface. It provides a very nice tactile drawing experience. The downsides or limitations would be, well, the Mac and Windows driver both have issues with dual display setup. More specifically, you cannot use switch display to switch the cursor from one display to the other. So that to me is a deal breaker since I use dual display setups. But if you are using just your pen display as your main display, you don't have to worry about that. Another issue is with the USB-C connection with macOS, where the pen display cannot remember the backlight settings. So just to sum it all up, my overall drawing experience on this pen display is positive. You just have to take note of those issues that I have mentioned. Alright, if you guys are interested to buy this pen display, you can check out the purchase links that I have in the video description below. Thanks for watching, and do check out all my other product reviews on my YouTube channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye!